This is Ginny Fey with Real Estate One, and I'm here with Ben Williams of Benchmark Mortgage. One topic that people have talked about is there's so many misconceptions on VA loans, and sellers were hesitant to accept an offer because it had VA on there. Would you talk to me about that a little bit?
Yeah, unfortunately, just like with anything else, the VA is recovering from their bad past reputation, and a lot of the things that really holds back a lot of veterans and buyers and sellers is that bad reputation that from years past. Since then, over the past 10-15 years, the VA has really gone out of their way to help out veterans especially, and to educate the public as well, to let them know that there's been substantial changes that helps with that process. And one of the processes that has really benefited was the speed of the close. There's been a lot of things that in the past has slowed down a VA home loan, and that was a major factor why a lot of sellers and realtors were discouraged with the VA.
Right.
And those things were longer appraisals or tougher inspections, or we have to send a loan to the VA to get the approval before we can approve it. And those three topics have gone to the wayside. The VA no longer requires first-hand approval of loans. All VA loans are handled in-house with the lender. And then as far as appraisal times, the VA actually pays appraisers more money to go out and do a VA loan as with conventional and FHA. So it's more beneficial for an appraiser to get out there quickly. And then plus two, the appraiser actually keeps all of his money that he gets for the cost, whereas conventional FHA, an appraiser doesn't get to keep all of his money when he goes out there and does it. So
what about the fact that I always knew that the inspections on VA loans were tougher? They were very much like the FHA loans, which drove us nuts. So
Exactly.
Talk to me about that.
Well, that's a really good question, because Jenny, in the past, the VA was really tough on these inspections, and there was a lot of fear, even a fear that an appraiser is going to pick up on some stuff. So there's kind of a double-edged sword. Well, the home inspection is as tough as it is with conventional, not FHA. So
That's
if you're
good.
so if you're looking for a house, you kind of lean more towards the conventional mortgage line of thinking than you would with FHA. The three big things that is concerning for a VA lender would be: is the home safe, is the home sound, and is the home sanitary? 3 S's. And meaning that does water flow downhill? Can you get out of the house in case of emergency? And is there a skylight where there shouldn't be one? So those are the big things, and then everything else, all the other concerns is mitigated with the VA. They only care about those 3 things. Now there are other lenders out there that will add what they call overlays on top of a VA home loan. And that's where the discouragement comes into play with VA, is that other lenders may add on different requirements, such as the age of the furnace, or peeling paint, or something along those lines. And those really are not as important for VA. It's just the lender is more concerned about it in the long run.
What does a veteran have to do to qualify for one of these? What are the requirements?
Well, usually for active duty personnel, as long as the veteran has served a minimum of 3 years, he automatically qualifies. 3 active duty years. He automatically qualifies for the VA loan. For National Guard and reservists, they need to have at least 6 years of service and going and performing duties and stuff like that. There's 2 factors with National Guard and reservists that are unique from the active duty. National Guard and reservists, they need to actually have what they call a point sheet along with a DD Form 214 to show their honorable discharge. The point sheet shows basically the attendance record of that reservist or guardsman, and the point sheet will also say, okay, this person actually showed up for duty and they have honorable discharge. Sometimes they're, a veteran or a guardsman or a reservist may not have performed enough duties or showed up for enough duty assignments within their enlistment period to qualify.
I see.
So it shows that, okay, that weekend a month or 2 weeks a year, then they attended it. So all those years add up to qualifications, and they want to see that they attended guard and reserve duties. The other thing with the guard and reserve duties, if you receive Title 10 orders, meaning you've been called up to service, then you automatically qualify regardless of
Is that like wartime?
for wartime.
Okay.
And a good way to look at that is if they're sent overseas to do their duty for their country. But recently, on the Capitol,
January
6th, those guardsmen that were called up, they were called up on Title 10.
Okay.
And so they spent like 90 days over there trying to guard the Capitol and everything. Well, there's a lot of guardsmen around the country that were called up, especially here in Michigan. And so those folks now qualify for a VA loan.
Wow, that's awesome. I bet there's a lot of them that don't know that.
There's not a lot of them that know that. So,
wow.
And that really helps with the qualification purposes and whatnot too with the VA.
Okay. Wow, that's good.
Yeah.
I've always heard that the veterans can only use their VA benefits once. Is that correct?
It was.
Of course, VA has changed everything, right?
Exactly, it was correct, but however, that has changed.
Oh, good.
So a veteran can use his VA loan more than once. He can also have multiple VA loans at the same time.
Wow.
So in the past, it was kind of like a one and done. And now, once you have a VA loan, you can also have a second home or a third home. The difference is that a veteran must be continuously upgrading their home.
So a higher priced home.
Exactly.
Each time.
They can't go down and back up again. So as long as they're progressively moving up, and the thought process was if an active duty member bought a house, in, let's say, Detroit or whatever, and they got orders to go to Atlanta, and they couldn't sell their home for whatever reason, then they weren't penalized for renting out that house and buying another one because of the duty change requirements. That was kind of the thought process with that. So a veteran can have multiple VA home loans open at the same time, as long as they can qualify for the loan. And there's no cap either. In the past, there was a cap.
There was. When I was a lender, there was a cap, and they could only do it once. And I was under those old rules.
And 2 years ago, they did away with the cap.
Oh, wow.
So now there's not a cap, but obviously the veteran must qualify for the loan. I mean, just because there's a cap doesn't mean you can qualify for $1 million home. You have to qualify for it. And now the veteran doesn't have to worry about that anymore. So
well, that sounds fantastic. Boy, they have really, really helped the veterans now.
They really have. I mean, they really stepped up.
Yeah.
And it takes a while to erase bad memories and bad history, but the VA, in my opinion, is doing an excellent job of helping the veterans and getting out there and getting the message out there and saying, okay, Mr. and Mrs. Veteran, you've done a really good job for our country. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Yeah. Yes. Oh, thank you to all the veterans. Tell me, what is the difference between FHA and VA today?
The similarities end at a government loan.
I love it.
So there's a common fallacy that VA and FHA are the same. Only the VA is there to help the veteran.
Right.
The VA is actually there to help more or less weaker buyers with credit and down payment and stuff like that. The federal government stepped in and say, we're going to help you buy your house through FHA. The VA is completely different. The VA, a traditional veteran, has an undergrad or higher degree. Their credit scores are, 720 or above, and they typically have a significant amount of money saved up, and they have a steady income. They're more employable. The veteran buyer or an active duty buyer is one of the strongest buyers you'll run into.
Right.
A lot stronger than an FHA buyer as far as credit risk and employment and stuff like that. So the big difference is that the VA versus FHA, the only similarity is the government. FHA is there to help those that need a hand up. VA is there to thank the veterans for their hand.
That's awesome.
So
that's awesome.
That's the biggest. The difference that I could say there. And when you're looking at a purchase agreement and you see VA, you shouldn't be concerned.
No, you
at
should
all.
accept that before you would an FHA.
Exactly right.
if it's a veteran.
Exactly.
Obviously.
That's the biggest thing that I want people to understand is that the VA loan is, when you see a VA, 9 times out of 10, that veteran is a strong candidate to purchase a home. He's more apt to hold on to that home than any other because he understands and enjoys the value of home ownership. He wants something of his own. The veteran also, when it comes to money, even though he doesn't have to have no money down, he's the one that is going to be a better candidate for bidding purposes and outbidding the other person, is because a veteran is more likely to have additional funding. So if a conventional buyer has to put down 5, 10, whatever percent down, the veteran buyer doesn't have to use any of his money.
Right.
So this guy, the conventional buyer, is already having to bring money to the table. And if he's going in a bidding war and he wants to raise his
Good
offer,
point. Yeah.
he has to bring more money to the table. Well, guess what? This veteran right here, he didn't have to worry about a down payment, and he can outbid this guy right here, no problem, because he had the additional funds and he didn't have to spend it on a down payment.
Wow. Also, I remember people, well, when I was lending, there was the funding fee that was, and that got really expensive. So talk to me about the funding fee, the VA funding fee.
Although the VA doesn't have a mortgage insurance,
Right.
the VA does have a funding fee, and that fee is there to help with other VA funding to help other veterans get there. The big point is if a veteran is 10% or more disabled, meaning he's got a
lot of them are, yeah.
Exactly. Then that funding fee is waived. And that can amount for thousands of dollars.
Well, how much is the funding fee?
The funding fee,
It used to be 1% of the loan amount.
I want to say it's 1.5 now or something along those. At the end of the day, it's 1.4. At the end of the day, though, that funding fee, if you're looking at a $200,000-$300,000 house, that could be several $1,000s right there that the veteran doesn't have to worry about paying because he's a disabled vet.
Right.
So majority of the veterans out there, they served their country, they got the war wounds to prove it, whether it might be physical or mental, they do qualify for a disability. So if they have that disability rating, then they don't have to worry about that funding fee anymore.
Well, plus, I would think if you were doing a conventional loan or an FHA loan, you've got the MIP, the mortgage insurance that they have to have, whereas the funding fee would kind of be the same thing.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah.
So you're going to pay it no matter what type of loan you've got.
Exactly right. And that's, why I encourage veterans to also, get involved, talk to a veteran officer about getting that disability because it can be a huge impact.
Oh, yeah.
And everything. So, and that's also differ from the FHA. The FHA, you're going to have to pay additional money. You're going to have to pay that mortgage insurance.
That's right.
And so that's another huge thing that.
And it's a long time before it goes away.
Exactly right. So.
Well, Ben, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
You are so knowledgeable on the VA and loans, and I so appreciate that because they've been giving such a bad rap, in the past few years, and especially last 2 years when we had the bidding wars and everything else, and I would see VA, and my buyers at that time would say, I don't want a VA loan because it's bad.
Right.
And I would encourage them to accept the VA. So please, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask Ben Williams. What is your phone number?
They can reach me at 231-632-7888, or you can email me at ben.williams@benchmark.us.
Perfect. All right. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
All
Thanks
right.
for having me on.
And thank you for listening. And if you have any questions, don't hesitate to call.